Drawing feet, as any other part of the human body, refers to looking at the angles, structures, and bends of features. So looking at the foot over here, we look at the center line of the foot, the bend towards the ankle bones, look at where the toes are attached, bend, and edge like fingers. And we look at the front parts, the angles, and the turning points, looking at the angle of the big toe, looking at the front part of the toe towards the structure of the bend of that knuckle, towards the big knuckle at the top, towards the bridge of the foot that moves around the tendon to the edge, back down to the bend of that toe that moves towards the adjacent toe, structure on the bend of that knuckle, moving to the front towards the bend of the toe, angle moving back up towards the turning point at the bridge of the foot, around that ankle bone, to the top, back down to the next toe, around the top bridge of the foot, building up the structures again of the knuckle of the toes, bend and front part of the toes, how they attach to the bridge, and moving to the little toe at the far side, volume to the edge, back up to the turning point, and that meets the ankle bone. If we remove that image, we have a foot. Looking at foreshortening of feet, again looking at center line, bend of the foot on the ankle bone, where the toes are attached to the bridge, bend on the toes and edges of the toes. We look at the foreshortening of this big toe, and looking at the front part of the toes, we see that there's a slight angle of the 5 toes that move in accordance to the angle of the foot. We'll look at building the bends of the toes, but importantly is seeing the angles of where the bends are and the knuckles of each toe. So if we define the front part of the toe, the big toe, and looking at how the turning point of the knuckle moves around the bridge back to the cushion and front part of the toe, the cushion to the adjacent part of the knuckle moves to the back part of the foot, moving back up to the ankle bone that moves back down to the volume of that foot, up to the leg, over the turning point on the tendon towards the bridge of the foot that moves down towards the front part of the foot as it meets the structure to the top. As it moves to the front, we need to look at the angle between the cushion and heel that's on the same trajectory. We then build up the structure of each toe like we build the fingers in the other tutorial, according to the angles, structure on each knuckle, front part, and how they are attached. Each element relates to the volume and structure of the foot as a whole. If we look at the other foot, we see that we've got the toes pointing towards us. We can see the bottom part of the foot, angle of the toes, cushion of the foot, center part of the foot, as well as the heel. So if we look at the angle of where the toes are and we look at building the 5 parts of where they will be placed, we see where they are attached to the cushion area. We see the turning point of the cushion area, the center point from the big toe towards the furthest point on the foot, seeing the angle towards the inside part of the foot and tendons that move towards the heel. Starting to define the big toe, we see the structure of the front as it is attached to the cushion, defining the cushion tendons towards where the other toes are attached, that move down towards the inside of the foot, back to the heel at the bottom, that moves back up towards the structuring on the toes at adjacent to the big toe. So we look at the front tips of the toes, seeing the inside structures where they're attached to the cushion, and looking at the negative spaces in between. If we, for example, then remove that image, we will have structured feet to guide us in tonal value. If we develop our own foot, we will, for example, here look at the angle of the leg, turning point from ankle bone to ankle bone, where the toes are attached to the bridge, angle of the bend of the toes, angle to the front part of the toes. In this drawing, we'll place the big toe slightly apart from the adjacent toes for a negative space in between, but again we develop the front part of the big toe, building up the structure on the knuckle, moving up towards that cushion area, towards the top part of that knuckle, moving towards the bigger part of the bridge of the foot. But we'll build up the next knuckle on the next adjacent toe, bottom part of that toe that moves around the volume to the top as it is attached to the bridge of the foot, looking at that fleshy part that moves to the side as the toes are slightly separate, building the adjacent toe, looking at the tendons towards the bridge of the foot, next toe, knuckle, front, and toenail, looking at the little toe at the edge and seeing that volume that moves around the bridge of the foot, moving to the edge of the toe, the big toe in this instance, to the edge of the ankle bone, adjacent to the other ankle bone, and edge of the foot. These structural lines again help you to determine where your estimate of tonal values are. That is why we build up the structures first to give us a direction of not only line work but also of volume that our line work needs to accompany in order to show adequate structural form. If we look at a foot from the side, again we look at the angle from the leg towards the center point of the ankle bone. From there, looking at the angle towards the big toe, the turn on that big toe that moves around the bridge of the foot to the cushion area at the bottom part of the foot, looking at the width of the heel, the turning point from the edge of the heel to the front part of the leg that moves towards the big toe. We start building up the structure of that big toe, looking at the adjacent toe, as with the previous example, looking at the knuckles, bends, and how they attach to the bridge of the foot. We never start to define the toenails in the beginning. That appear when we start to build structures around the volumes with hints of the toenail that will be defined later with tonal value. But here we build structure first, looking at where we are now at the cushion area of the pinky or little toe around the bridge of the foot to the front part of the foot where the big toe is aligned, back into the heel towards the ankle bone, volume to the top, moving down to the cushion area around the bridge of the foot to the ankle, to the far side of the foot to the back, and down to the heel. If we look at a different angle of the foot, and we look at seeing the foot from the bottom where the foot is slightly turned, so we can see the edges of the tendons at the back of the foot towards the ankle bone. We can see the cushion part of the heel at the bottom towards the cushion area of where the toes will be attached that move around the bridge of the foot to the ankle bone, and the toes at the bottom. A similar position of the foot is looking at the foot that is placed on a slightly more stretched angle, seeing the bottom part of the cushion area of the heel towards the tendon around the bridge of the foot and where the toes are aligned. Now, all these elements of drawing the foot is very similar, as I've mentioned, that is drawing the hands. It is structure of the bend of each toe, the knuckles, front, volume, and how they are attached to the bridge of the foot, moving around the volume towards the ankle bone. Angles are very important, from the legs towards the ankle bone, moving to the center point through the bridge of the foot towards the toes, angle of the toes, and structure. From the structure, we build up tonal value, looking at the turning points and where your light and dark areas are, and how the volumes of the toes come to life with regards to utilizing the structural points as guidance. Again, toenails will appear more vividly with tonal value than structure. But the key points here, again, inside out, turning points from the knuckles towards the bends of the toes, the volumes on the edges and how they attach to the bridge of the foot and how they relate to one another.